Welcome back to the third session in a guide to helping your child navigate their GCSE journey. Hopefully you're enjoying the course so far. Today's session is going to be helping your child create a revision plan, which obviously is at the centre of nearly all the GCSE journey, is revising the content to make sure that you can do well in the exams and in the coursework. So being able to create a tailored plan to not just your sort of generic studying plans, but that's unique to your child, to their strengths, to their special educational needs, is going to be really key to ensuring that they get the most out of their revision time. So today we're going to be understanding your child's learning style and their needs, setting clear and achievable goals, lighting and seating, as I've already discussed in the previous one, but that is just so important. Incorporating specialized resources, positive learning environments, and then throughout this whole process is going to be key to involving your child in all of the decisions that you make. So the first thing that I want to look at is learning styles. And I think it's a question that we actually have to ask ourselves all the time, is how do we learn? Because we all learn differently, and there's various different learning styles for everybody. Are you a visual learner? You could be an audio learner, kinesthetics, and lots of things with doing your hands. Are you a morning person? Like, do you work better in the morning, or are you a bit of a night owl? And I will say, like, working in the evening is okay, but working at night and doing all-nighters is absolutely not recommended. We'll come into that in healthy habits. Do you prefer color coding or writing notes? Do you prefer to do things in presentation format like this? Or do you actually like learning about things when they can apply to the real world? Is that how you prefer, like, your information to sink in? And by assessing your learning style and helping your child assess their learning style, you can create a tailored revision guide that is really going to be, sort of key to them. So if you've got a very visual learner, so using things like flashcards and writing notes and making things very colorful and making things lots of images, they're going to be able to retain that information. Whereas if you've got somebody who is more audio learning, then you might be looking at things like text-to-speech applications, or listening to audiobooks, or recording yourself talking about a specific topic and going over the facts and then putting it in your headphones like a podcast. If you've got a kinesthetic learner, you might be doing a lot of things with your hands, and usually you would have probably chosen subjects that require a lot of physical things like PE or design and technology, lots of things working with woodwork, for example, or textiles. And so it's all about learning how you learn. And I think that is the key thing that school can also help you with, but it's obviously only a question that you can answer, and then sort of tailoring how you study around that. So assess how your child learns best, and then find ways to tap into that to aid with their learning. Another really key point is to use special interests. And I'm sure for all the parents out there who've got autistic children or children with ADHD, you already know what I'm talking about. Special interests are not just hobbies for children with SEND. They are absolute areas of fascination, like some say bordering on obsession, but I don't like to use that word. It's a fascination, and it's an absolute, all-consuming sort of like interest in this specific thing. And it could be the most obscure thing, but it's something that they're really passionate about. It's a real love for that thing, no matter what it is. Some really common ones are things to do with like astronomy, or the dinosaurs, or buses, or things that oh gosh, I can't even think of anything else. But I've had so many children, sort of be fascinated by various different things. And if you can make any learning activity relevant to that interest, there is a lot more engagement. There is a lot more enjoyment out of learning that thing. So let's say if I've got a student or a child who is very interested by trains or transport of any kind, of airplanes or buses or cars, and I'm trying to revise mathematics. Well, if I can make any part of that mathematics relevant to how a train operates, or relevant to a bus timetable, or relevant to how a car may travel over a certain period of time, or the speed or the distance, even if it's a very sort of light connection to that interest, it's going to be far more enjoyable. Also helping them chunk the information. Like, I look at a certain topic in, say, mathematics, and I see a sea of lots of problems and lots of things that I have to learn. And it can all get very overwhelming, especially with mathematics, because it is such a difficult topic for a lot of students. It can be very overwhelming. Whereas if you chunk the pieces, the information into bite-sized pieces and break it down into really, really small chunks of information and step-by-step guides, it can become a lot easier to tackle. And usually with mathematics, it will build on itself. So everything will start to make sense because you're going to be linking things that you've learned previously to also now what you're learning now and in the future. Setting clear and achievable goals. As I mentioned just there, things can be quite overwhelming. So if I'm looking at maths, which I'm obviously going to use quite a lot in this as an example, but I might be looking at, I need to understand all of GCSE geometry. Well, yes, that is true. For my exam, we need to understand GCSE geometry. However, that is not a goal, realistically. And when I say goal setting, I need us to be looking at SMART goals. And this has been great for me in my personal life, in my work life, and my academic life as well. And the SMART goal is one that is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and within a time frame. So if I now take that goal of I need to understand GCSE geometry and I move it into I should be able to do 5 questions on area and perimeter without notes by the end of the week, that is a more SMART goal. And by that, I'm being specific. I should be able to do 5 questions. It's measurable because if I can do 5 questions, great, I've achieved my goal. Is it achievable? Possibly. Like I could achieve that realistically by the end of the week. And again, is it realistic? I'm not asking for the world. I'm not saying I should be able to do expert level questions. I'm just saying I should be able to do 5 questions without my notes, and the time frame by the end of the week. And even if you don't meet them, it doesn't matter. You've made progress, and I'll come into that as well a little bit later. But just being able to set smarter goals, it puts you in the right mind frame of a growth mindset. It has things that you'll be able to clearly tick off that you can do. And as you slowly start to achieve those more smarter goals and you can tick them off, there's positive reinforcement. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this now. And it'll break it down into much more achievable milestones. Setting a routine. So routine is really important for, day-to-day life, but especially around revision. So children with SEND really benefit from having structured, predictable routines, and especially in times of stress. As I've already said, children with SEND, including things like autism, ADHD, anxiety, mental health needs, the world around them can be very, very chaotic and very traumatic to be in and very unpredictable. And so if there is an aspect of their life that they can control in terms of a routine of where they're going to be, when, for how long, what they're going to be doing very specifically, it gives much more of a calming feeling of being in control. And especially in times of stress, that's obviously what we want to be. We want to be nice and calm and low level. We don't want to have any stress, or if it is, it's very low level and manageable. It creates that sense of calmness and safety, which is a really key aspect to it. So create a visual routine. Children often will really benefit from visuals. So even just having something up in their room or having something up on the fridge where there's a visual routine to the day, no matter what routine it is, it's really easy. And also then everybody else in the house is aware of what's going on. Short learning periods, as I've mentioned before, the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, and you've got 50 minutes of work done then in an hour, which is much better than what typically a student would sit down and do an hour's work for. Balancing learning activities with other things that they do. As tempting as it can be for some students to cram and do nothing but revision for 6 months straight as they're leading up to their GCSE exams in year 11, it's not sustainable, and it will lead to things like burnout, anxiety, mental health difficulties. It can also lead into things sort of further down the line around eating. Some students really struggle with their nutrition during high times of stress. So balancing learning activities with social activities, allow them obviously to still go off and do their normal hobbies. If they've got after school clubs, they can still go to those. Not every single minute of the day has to be dedicated to revision. Because you've got to maintain that work-life balance, as I'm sure as adults are more used to hearing in the work world. And it's teaching them that they can obviously still enjoy themselves, and you shouldn't feel guilty for not doing revision. You're still enjoying your life, even during this time of high stress. Allow for flexibility. So if there is a time when your child is feeling a little bit more stressful, there's not the necessary need to then stick to that timetable in terms of what I should be revising now, and if I'm not, it's all going to go to hell in the handbasket, and it's all going to go to chaos, and it's not. If they're feeling really, really stressed, and if they're really overwhelmed, and you can sort of see them heading down a path of maybe a burnout or a shutdown or a meltdown, allow them then to go and indulge in whatever they need to do to bring themselves back into emotional regulation, to bring themselves back into that sense of calm, back to feeling safe, to then tackle it the next day and hopefully be in a better mindset. Another thing is to keep the home schedule as routine as possible. So if you can have dinner roughly at the same time every day, so that other things aren't constantly changing, and that can also be a little bit more predictable. That will also lower the stress levels as well. This is just an example. So obviously it's nice and color coded, which I do like for visual learners. But you can see here, school, majority of the day, because it probably will be the same thing. You've then got homework, because they're still given homework even at times of the exam. So you've still got to get like high priority, time sensitive things done as well. And then you can move into revision. So you might have things that are specific, color coded. So chemistry, English, history, maths. Then you have dinner at the same time every day, ideally. And you can see here as well, they are short learning bursts. They're not quite the Pomodoro ones, because I couldn't find an image which suited that. But 40 minutes, you could do then 35 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest. Or you could do something more, if they need more rest, they could do 40 minutes of work and 20 minutes of rest, or 15 minutes of rest, then come back on the hour. Oops. And then you've got to see here, maybe Saturday, Sunday evenings are completely free. They can do whatever they want. But, some of these general revision sessions here, that could also be for social and hobbies as well. This is the Pomodoro technique in a little bit more detail than last time. So we've got selecting a single task, working on it continuously for 25 minutes, 5-minute break, repeat for 4 rounds. And then at the end of the 4 rounds, you can then take a 30-minute break, or actually just finish for the day, typically. Using specialist resources. So obviously our children have all got kinds of different needs that may require assistive technology or specialist resources in order to make the learning materials more accessible to them. So look at assistive technology, things like text-to-speech, really helpful for audio learners, really helpful for dyslexic students or students who struggle with their reading. You can have papers, you can have resources, materials read to you. And just look at things like YouTube. YouTube is absolutely full of amazing revision techniques as well. Creating multi-sensory environments, so allowing for a sensory exploration, and also tying in the things that we spoke about last time about audio learning, about visual learning, about kinesthetic learning, trying to create a multi-sensory environment to aid as much learning as possible. Speak to the SENCO at your child's school, or the teacher, or any therapist that they see, and see, what do they suggest. There may be some tools that they use in school. There may be some tools that they use in therapy that would be really helpful for you to have access to at home as well. And they are the best placed people to advise you on that. Positive learning environment, as we've already discussed quite at length, creating a sensory-friendly, distraction-free environment which is free of clutter is going to be really important to ensure that they are in the best frame of mind to sit down and do some work. The other things are to make it like a positive experience to be in. Shouldn't be a slog. It shouldn't be, I need to go sit there and, do my revision again. It should be not necessarily, I would say, enjoyable. I don't think I can say that many students enjoy revising, but it shouldn't be a bad experience. Praise is really important, even for the effort, for the, meeting small milestones. Just praise praise as much as you possibly can, without being too cheesy, without being too cringy. I know some students don't really like that, but to know that you're on their side and that you do support them is really key. And for some learners, they like to see the images or a vision board or motivational posters that, might get them through. So if you've got a child who wants to work in the mechanics industry, you may have pictures of, mechanics and cars and things that they might get to work with, should they do well in their exams. Or, if you've got a specific child who wants to go to a specific university, I know a lot of children have always got their hearts set on Oxford and Cambridge. You can have pictures of the university that might be up there that will motivate them to sort of sit down and study, and realize that you are working towards something tangible. This isn't just to pass your exams. This is actually to start your life in the world of work. And involve your child. So top down, where you're being told what to do by somebody more superior to you, rarely works. It doesn't work in school, it doesn't work at home, it doesn't work in the offices, it doesn't work in the world of work, realistically. It will usually have quite a bit of pushback to that. So offer as many choices as you possibly can, so that a student has autonomy over their schedule, over their environment, over the study options. And if you get their buy-in, if you get their investment, they're more likely to enjoy the process and put a lot of effort into the process as well. And you can celebrate the small wins as much as possible, and hopefully just have a really good experience of creating a study environment that is going to lead them to the results that they want. So creating